So, first of all, welcome to the 8th episode of the CliMed's Research Cafe series, Exploring Science, My Journey and Engagement, brought to you by Innovation and Ideation Club. Today, we have a truly inspiring guest, Dr. Ajay Kale, who is an esteemed pharmacologist holding an MS-Ph.D. in pharmacology from the University of Louisiana. Dr. Kale has also completed postdoctoral research in regenerative medicine and molecular biology. He has made significant contributions to the field through his extensive research, publishing over 30 plus papers holding 2 patents. Dr. Kai has been awarded multiple research grants and travel grants for his work presented at international conferences. His international career includes notable positions at institutions such as Uppsala University, Linköping University, and Karolinska Institute. Sir, that's an absolute honor to have you here with us today.
All right, thank you, Mayuri, for having me on this podcast. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you, sir. So let's start with the first segment, that is personal journey. Sir, can you share with us a bit about your early life and educational background? Like what inspired you to pursue a career in pharmacy and how did you decide to specialize in pharmacology specifically?
Yes, before I answer that question, I first would like to thank all the organizers, specifically CliMed's Academy, right? Their intern society, and all the organizers for being part of this, organizing this session. So a big thank you to all of you for having me on this podcast. And again, this is very unique, important day for all the fathers around the world. So happy Father's Day to all the fathers in India and all around the world. Again, so coming back to your question, my little bit of background that, I'm coming from a small town called Karad in Maharashtra. So, which is around 65 kilometers away from Pune. And growing up, I actually was a part of a middle class family, a Maharashtrian middle class family. So my mother tongue is always Marathi, and my primary and secondary education happened in Marathi. So I was not a convent or English medium student. So anyway, so I started from that as a kid, and then I never knew I would end up in pharmacy because as every kid is, everybody is naive. They don't know a lot of things when you're a kid. So when I was I will tell you a story that when I used to pass by a college of pharmacy, I always think, okay, pharmacy is related to farming, because I never knew that pharmacy is related to new drug development or the medicines that you get. So that was my naiveness when I was a kid, because at that time we did not have internet or TV where you can actually look into the encyclopedia or the dictionary what pharmacy means. So that was my first exposure to a pharmacy name of the college, and my first perception was it was related to farming. But anyways, to cut to the chase, once I completed my primary and secondary education, I actually came to Pune. I was a Bachelor of Pharmacy student back then, and I think I was first or second batch of MIT College, which is in Pune. So that was one of the unique experiences that I had as a growing up as a kid, and never had an exposure to English that time, because also my father had a kind of physics degree, so he was a bachelorate of physics. So he told me to a little bit do studies of English and keep up with new vocabulary and all those things. So growing up as a Marathi kid, I also had that environment in my house that I used to read a little bit of English. I used to read new words every time. So I would say takeaway from this point is there are a lot of people who grow up in different languages, right? And for them it's a little bit of fear to speak English or communicate in English or write English language. But if I could make it, everybody can make it, or anybody can make it. So that's one of the things that I feel. And other thing I would like to say to the audience that I always believe that as a human being, our physiology is the same. We have all studied the physiology. So maybe less than 1% people in the world are really brilliant. Their brains are very, very astute. But for us, for rest of the people, we are average people in a way. So our brains grow up similarly. So anybody could make it from the kid childhood to at what stage I am right now. So anybody could make that thing happen.
That's really inspiring, sir. You have told us that background cannot limit your potential.
That's correct.
So next question, can you share some highlights from your educational journey, particularly during your time at the University of Louisiana, where you completed your MS and PhD in pharmacology?
Yes, sure. As I said, when I came to Pune, when I was completing my pharmacy undergraduate education, as we call it, like B pharmacy, right? So I never knew what to do after that. It was like a little difficult for me to understand what to do. And that time we did not have any Google, you can search for different fields that you could do specialization in it. So I was dependent on some of my friends and, to see what I could be doing. So few of my friend circle, which is very important that you have good friends. They were doing a little bit of research in terms of what we could do here and abroad. So fortunately, a few of the people who studied in MIT and VIT in engineering, actually, that was a few friends that I had. And along with them, I started preparing for GRE and TOEFL at that time. And maybe I was one of my first students from MIT who went abroad to study something. So that was very new for us to do higher education abroad. So anyway, cut to the chase. I actually applied to a number of universities. I got approvals from different universities, but I ended up going to University of Louisiana Monroe, which is down south, close to Texas and Alabama. So that's where I ended up being. This is my first institution in the United States, and that was to my surprise. It was a little different for me because when I went there. As a bachelor student, because I was doing master's and PhD, so as a bachelor student, you are fresh off the boat. You don't know a lot of things to expect from the United States. So when you go to the laboratories, there are different laboratories. What important thing or interesting thing, what I found was you will go to different laboratories and see what are the scientists working on. And then you can choose from the area that feel that you are, best fitting or the area that you feel interested in. So I had that experience in going into different laboratories and seeing what work they are doing. So eventually I ended up being a part of a laboratory where I was doing a master's and PhD course in pharmacology, but my major was neuroscience because I thought that this is one of the key areas that time that I would be able to contribute at large and I would be able to learn a lot of things from that area. So that's where I started my journey in the University of Louisiana under my PI, which her name is Dr. Karen Brisky.
That sounds like an incredible experience, sir. It highlights the importance of immersing yourself in a research, totally.
That's right. That's right, Miss. The only thing which I would like to say is, you need to be, open to possibilities. That's what I always tell young people that you need to be open to possibilities, and you have to embrace the opportunities that you get. Because sometimes what happens, the opportunity knocks your door, but you let go the opportunity, and that opportunity will not come again. So it's very important to see what is in front of you. And as I said, now this generation has a lot of online stuff that you could go through. You have all the knowledge and the background that you can study and, take your judicial decision according to the position that you are in. So there are always opportunities for everybody.
Yes, sir. We have access to a lot of things nowadays.
That's right.
So you have an immersive educational background spanning multiple disciplines. What inspired you to pursue postdoctoral studies in regenerative medicine and molecular biology after completing your PhD in pharmacology?
Yes, that's right.
And
that's right. I understood.
Postdoc studies have benefited you, sir?
Yes. So first of all, when you end up in a research field, although you're doing master's or PhD, few things that you should remember is, a lot of things which you haven't gone through as a bachelor student will come your way. So you should be always accepting the new things. So as a researcher, when you start doing things like when I said, when I was doing my PhD, I had to do a lot of things by my own. So there will not be anybody who will be coming and helping you out. So that's one of the key points that I learned when I was in the United States, that, you have to do everything, right from cooking to studying to, teaching, and all those things have to be done by one individual, and everybody does that. Okay. So I did my PhD. During that time, I learned a lot of things from them, right? My boss is a phenomenal writer. She writes very, very nice papers, and she writes a lot of grants. So, I give full credit or all the credit to her that, I looked at her style of writing. She is a very complex writer. She uses a lot of different vocabulary and words which are very complex. So I learned a lot of things from her, how to write things and how to, get through to the audience in a way by writing or, by communicating. Because as I said, since I was a Marathi guy, it's very difficult for me to come across being in that environment. So you have to blend yourself, you have to mold yourself into environment. So I learned a lot of things from her, and in the lab, the colleagues that I had. So I did my PhD in neuroscience, as I said. But after that, you're coming back to your question. Postdoctoral studies is one of the key. It's not just the study that you are in kind of employee of the organization. So even if you're doing postdoctoral studies, that means once you're a doctorate, that means you know how to handle projects. You have enough experience, you have enough skill sets, and all the kind of knowledge which can actually lead you into a new project. You can handle a project on yourself. So that was one of the key things in a postdoctoral study. So I went to University of Alabama. Actually, after my PhD, I interviewed at a number of places like medical school at New Jersey or West Virginia, Texas, and a lot of other places. But eventually, I ended up at University of Alabama, Birmingham, which is one of the prime institute where a lot of research happens. There actually interesting thing which we did was looking at the role of neuronal cilia on obesity. So you can see how important a cellular structure is. Even a small cilia on neurons can cause obesity. And that kind of research is very important because you're looking at a cellular level of every time, cellular level genetics. All these things are very important, key indicators of a pathophysiological condition. So I was looking at obesity, but during that time, I was focusing on neuronal cilia. So that was a very interesting part, and I could use my resources, my skill sets, my understanding of neuroscience while studying the neuronal cilia. So I was hired to do postdoctoral research because of my background. It wasn't just a random thing. They will, once you go for an interview, they will not grill you on questions which are not related, but they will look at how important you are to their project. What are you bringing? What is the skill set that you're bringing? And what is the knowledge that you have so that you can produce more? Because the grants are hard to come by. You have to produce nice data, wonderful data, which is compatible to the world standards, and then you have to produce results accordingly. So that was my first experience of a postdoctoral fellowship at University of Alabama. And then afterwards, actually, I went to an institute called Karolinska Institute. If some of the audience don't know which is Karolinska Institute, it is the institute which gives the Nobel Prize to the people who are in the physiology and medicine department. Okay, so when you see online somebody getting a prize in physiology and medicine, Nobel Prize, that comes from the Karolinska Institute. So they have, suppose you're going to IIT, you know how the ambience will be, how the people will be. So same thing, when I went to this Nobel Laureate Institute, that was the ambience I was put through. It's a great research which happens there. I could teach some of the MD, PhD students because I had enough experience in that field. And there actually I started doing research on regenerative medicine and stem cells. One of the key things which happened when I was in Karolinska is probably in 2012, there was a Nobel Prize in stem cells. There at that time, I think new cells, which are called iPSCs, inducible pluripotent stem cells, which were developed by one of the Japanese scientists. I think it was the name of the scientist was Dr. Yamanaka. So I had the fortune. I was so fortunate to listen to him because there is a Nobel lecture. Every time somebody wins the Nobel laureate award, there will be a lecture in the Karolinska Institute. So you'll be able to sit there and listen to these great people, how the research has unfolded. And you know that IPSCs are now one of those key founding structures which will be used in the regenerative medicine. So I could say that not just I would be looking at the areas that I could focus on, but I would be looking at overall development as a researcher, as a faculty, or as a mentor. I would be looking at all those things to choose, and that's how I chose my key areas in my postdoctoral study or postdoctoral education.
That's really inspiring and interesting, sir. So, could you share an interesting cultural experience or a valuable lesson you learned while working abroad?
All right. So I would say, when you go abroad, I think they trust you. There's a lot of trust which is built around you. Whatever you say, that they believe in. It's not like, that you say something and you don't do those things. It doesn't happen that, so they are usually, those people are trust builders. They look at your genuinity, how genuine you are, and what you bring in the work culture. So as a human being, you grow in that field. Means that's what I felt. It's not just the research that I've grown like. I've also grown in terms of as a human being, because those are the facets that nobody talks about. Always, we talk about what are the monetary benefits that you get, or what is the career-wise aspect. Those are the key aspects of human life. But that's not just the whole life that you're looking into. You're looking at humanity as a human, how you can develop. So some of the moral values that you bring in, I learned a lot of moral values which they have. Then the work culture, as I said, like all the things that you do, you are responsible for that. Nobody will be responsible for your work. So you have to do your own work. And that's always the case. If you do your own work, you can excel in your work. That is the case. So when you do your work, when you excel in your work, and so you're not dependent on anybody. So that is the kind of culture that I have seen. And once you excel in your work, you do great things. And that is why you see a lot of scientists are abroad, because they're doing great things, because they have given a free hand to do a lot of things. Their hands are not bound to do certain things. They are always, their minds are working, their brains are working, and they are in sync with the relative experience that you have in the research. So the culture is a little bit different. See, we can bring in a lot of good culture that we have from India, but some of the moral values that I actually learned from them was these.
Okay, so that's an excellent advice. The moral values are really important, and I also learned from a lot of you the moral values. I always take something from you, always in a day, whenever we are in the college.
All right, thank you.
Next question, sir. Were there any significant challenges you faced during your educational or professional path, and how did you overcome them?
So, as a human being, I would say everybody faces challenges. So did I. It's nothing new. Everybody has challenges. When you go outside, when you drive, you have challenges. When you cook, you have challenges. So, human life is full of challenges. Everybody will be having smaller to bigger. It all depends on the grade that you project into. Challenges will be always there, but we have, the mind and soul and the body, which has been given to us. So we can always face the challenges. Similarly, I had those minor challenges which I had also when I was doing experiments. I had numerous challenges. As I said, like when you do different experiments, they are not the conditions that you're expecting. Sometimes they don't work, and then you get frustrated. It is always the case with everybody. It's our mind works like that. Some things you do over and over again, and if the things do not pan out as you wish, then you get frustrated. So same thing with me. Number of experiments failed, but you have to go back again to the table and see what are the mistakes that you're doing, and then figure out a way. Sometimes what happens, you cannot figure out certain ways, but then you have to take help. There are a lot of experts, similar to what you're saying. If you are doing M-Pharm, you're taking advice of your guide. Same thing at every stage. You take advice from your mom and dad. So that's not bad. It's very important because there are key time points in your life that you need great advice. And you have to understand that those challenges are always there, and throughout the life you will be facing those challenges, but you have to overcome those challenges. You know, these challenges will happen all the time, but it's the human tendency to overcome these challenges. So you can see like a lot of people around the world, in India as well, are successful. They had so many challenges. The same thing I had challenges of, as I said, I started as a kid from Maharashtra, from a small town, and I reached at this stage. So I had numerous challenges all the way. But they are very trivial. Now look, right now, if I look back, it feels they're trivial. When you reach at a certain stage, you feel those challenges were very trivial. So yeah, I'm happy with. I faced those challenges. I got experience, and I calmed down, a little bit.
Yes, a lot of people feel like English is a barrier, language is a barrier, and we lose our confidence due to the English language. So here is a real-time example in front of us, listeners. So he has reached a lot of heights, and he has an esteemed pharmacologist in front of you. We can learn from him lot of things. So
To elaborate that point, English, I understand, because since this is unfortunate, because now global language, English is a global language. It's very unfortunate because we have so many languages in India, but unfortunately for us, this is the language of communication. This is the language of science. This is the language of everything. So that is unfortunate. But as I said, like if I could do it, anybody can do it. And again, I told you, like I give you another example. In the United States, I worked as a intern pharmacist because I used to teach PharmD students there. When I was a master student, I used to teach PharmD students. So as an intern pharmacist, what happens when you have Indian English? Sometimes what happens, if you try to express certain things, they will not understand the phonetics. So what happens, it's very difficult to communicate with those people. Even if you know English, your accent is different. So you have to, when I was working in that environment, I had to change my accent according to them. Because what will happen if you just keep on saying the same words in Indian English, probably they will not be able to understand, and they will always be pardon, excuse me. So you'll be spending so much time in saying that. Rather than that, you have to blend into the system. And I'm sure a lot of people in India are very good at it, to blend through those things and, be a part. Like, as we always have a saying that when in Rome, behave like Romans. So nothing wrong in that, like, because you're being a part of their community. So you have to be prepared and you have to blend accordingly. So I'm sure that, your audience or anybody, because we are Indians, we can do that.
yes, we can say that Indians are a lot more adaptable and an excellent learners.
That's right.
So next question, that is, looking back on your educational journey from your undergraduate days in India to your postdoctoral experience in the US, what would be your advice to aspiring researchers or students considering pursuing a similar path?
Okay, I wouldn't say advice, but few suggestions I would say, because I'm no bigger person to give advices, because advices are for free. I will not give free advices because there's always is a case people can sit around and give advices. So everybody is facing their own challenges. But few suggestions that I will give is like, when somebody wants to be in my state, as a researcher from undergraduate to graduate school, first things first is you have to be well informed. Nowadays, you have a lot of literature which is available online. You have a lot of information, so you could be well informed. That is the key thing before moving forward. If you're, well informed, then it will be easy for you to move forward because you can believe in yourself. If you're not well informed, it's like giving an exam. If you don't study for the exam, you don't believe in yourself. So you have to find other resources to pass the exam. So that's not good. Anyway, see, first thing which is very important, I tell you or any of your audience is, you believe in yourself and do the hard work on yourself, because nobody will be coming in the future to help you. Your development is the best development in the world. You have to develop yourself, you have to challenge yourself and go through those situations, because experience, as you might be knowing, that when you go for an interview, they'll always say, okay, you don't have experience. That's usually the case. But how will you get experience if you're not getting a job? That's like a chicken and egg question all the time. So you need to portray yourself being, experienced. Even if you are going through an education system, you have to do certain things which you will tell the employers, or if you're going abroad, that I have done enough, which shows my experience. Even if I was studying, I still did a lot of things which will be beneficial for the organization or a company moving forward. So trust your instincts, believe in yourself, and work hard in getting to a position where you want to be. Those are the three things I would say that they are very critical.
Yes, sir. That's an excellent advice. I will call it as a suggestion.
Yes, you should call it a suggestion,
Yes, sir.
because suggestions are very important. I would say, like, as a guide, I always give suggestions rather than advices, because advice is always the case. Like sometimes slogans, you see a lot of slogans, but those people who give slogans have lived their life. Your life is different, so you develop your own slogan. That is what I call it. Even like in Christians, maybe when you have a stone carved, right, with some good things which is written on there, but that is for that person. You have to build your own legacy every time. You have to build your own things. You have to build your moral values, and you have to project yourself as that kind of human being that people will remember you.
So nice of you, sir. Coming to our next segment, that is research to life, navigating the world of research. So, securing research funding is a critical aspect of a scientific research. Can you share your experiences in obtaining research grants, such as those from the Marianne and Marcus Wallenberg's Foundation and the Petrus and Augustus Headland's Foundation? Could you share some tips on how to successfully apply for research fundings in India, as well as some of them for abroad too?
Yes, a very excellent question, I would say, because this is of prime importance nowadays, because the research funding has dried up everywhere around the world. It's very difficult to get research funding because our priorities have changed. Nowadays, if you look at very few years back, there was pandemic. So you had a viral infection. So anyways, when you apply for funding, your focus should be relevant to the society. So the focus has shifted. Now the research funding goes to the virology lab, or anybody doing research in virology. It's very important, because this is the prime importance. Right now, everybody had infection, right? So anyways, if you're working on different fields, maybe your field will be a little bit taking a step back. But since the prime importance given to virology, most of the grants will go to that lab. So my advice means, I would say advice suggestion again, it's very important. If somebody is writing a grant, you have to first look at into the topic that is of your interest. Then look at if the topic is relevant in this society. Because usually when you say it's relevant, that means a lot of people are suffering from that pathophysiological condition. So if you're not relevant, it's very difficult for you to even get a grant, or even they will not entertain your grant at all, grant application. So you have to first see what is the area of interest that you should focus on. Then you should have a greater knowledge of the subject. It's not just that you are, okay, I've written some review articles, and it's not that limited to that. You need to know, you should be well versed with the subject that you are focusing your grant on. Again, not just focusing on the grant, then you need to know every bits and pieces of the pathophysiological condition. What are the new developments which have happened for the last 5 years? Then, not just that information, when you're filling out the application, you need to know what are the resources that you will be using. Suppose you have a good application. Good application does not mean that you will get a grant, because there is a limitation of funding. So you have to understand that what are the resources that I have in my hand, those I will be utilizing, so that my project can move forward. And move forward means in a direction where people can benefit from that. So research funding, when somebody evaluates your application, lot of aspects go into that. Again, not just resources that you will be utilizing, your expertise. Suppose I am writing a grant in neuroscience. I could write, okay, I have 15, 17, 18 years of experience in neuroscience. So that boosts up my case that, okay, this individual has experience. Then, that builds up your credibility when you apply for a grant. I'm not saying that a new person cannot apply for the grant. Students can apply for the grant, but you have to show some credibility that this research will work, or you could do the research at least, even though you might not get the results that you're hoping for, but at least it should appeal to the jury who is actually looking at your application. And it should appeal to the people saying that, okay, I'm trying to solve this problem, or I'm giving you a new insight into this problem. So you need to know that. And again, in my case, I had that experience. And then a couple of grants you talked about, which I got in Sweden, which was related to regenerative medicine, where I was developing neuronal stem cells with a functionality. Functionality means what? Neurons actually have electrical activity. So if you develop new neurons, you should have functional neurons. You cannot have just structures which will be lying in the in vitro or outside culture, and there is no function of that. Ultimately, you have to show the function. Because in Sweden, I'll give you an example. In United States, there are a lot of governmental organizations that they will give you funding, and all the people who are working in United States will be applying for those grants. But in Sweden, the other interesting thing is there are a lot of rich people. In their family, there are few people who are suffering from a rare disease. So they will give you funding. If somebody is suffering from their family, they'll specifically allocate that amount of money so that you can solve that problem, so they can benefit from that problem. So it's not just the government, but there are a lot of rich people who also have fundings that they offer. So as I said, your application should be relevant. You should have all the knowledge. Plus, you should have some kind of experience. In that sense, you should have some preliminary data. If I'm writing a grant on neuronal cells which are regenerating, I should have limited data, at least that I have developed the neuronal cells. That is the preliminary data I have. So all these facets are very important when you write a grant, and you can go to the end when you can get a grant. But as I said, it's very difficult to get a grant because there are a lot of competitors nowadays, and your field of research needs to be very, very relevant and apt to the society at this moment.
Thank you, sir. That's an valuable advice we have got. Coming to the next question, you have received numerous awards for your research presentations and have attended conferences around the world. Which presentation or conference experience stands out to you the most, and why?
Okay, that's an excellent question. I would say, as I've got a number of poster presentations and podium presentation awards or grants, but one key presentation which comes to my mind is the first ever presentation that I had in the United States. I'll tell you why. Because I just joined the lab then, and it was very difficult for me to go through all these things because you're new. You're coming from a different country and you're trying to become a part of the lab. But fortunately for me, one of my experiments really worked. And I had a drug from Pfizer that was a gift given to my PI or my advisor. And somehow the experiment worked. And we tried to see if we can send an abstract on that to one of the greatest meetings that you will see in America, which is on diabetes, American Diabetes Association meeting, which is a grand meeting that you will see all the scientists from diabetes field will attend. So we sent out that abstract, and that meeting was supposed to be held in San Diego, California. So, and I was thinking maybe and the data is good, maybe I'll get a post presentation. So to our surprise, we actually got a podium presentation. And I was a little bit horrified because I wrote that abstract, and I thought maybe, a little bit my boss will present the work at the conference because she is an American. She could be well versed. with the things that they will be asking, and I'm not that good as she is. So, but she said, no, no, you have to present that work. So I was very much horrified because I know for sure there will be a lot of people sitting in front of me. Those are well-renowned scientists around the world, not from America, not from Europe, China, from everywhere. So I was horrified to present the work in front of those people. So then, no, she said, no, no, you have to present your work by yourself because you did work. You have to present your work. So then the preparation started for next maybe 20 days. After the work, I used to present in front of my group, and they will tell me the corrections in my presentation. I was actually fed up. At the end of 20 days, I was making changes after changes after changes. But the day came when I actually traveled to San Diego, California, and the moment came that when they announced my name, like the next speaker will be. So my name is Ajay Kale, but they announced in American style. The next speaker will be Mr. Ajay Kale. So I was like, a little bit shocked, to go there and talk in front of all these people. But somehow, by God's grace, I went there and I started speaking, and the flow started coming. Okay, so because we are not a native speaker there, it's very difficult to pull up your socks and go there and talk about work which you might be doing for 3-4 months, but you don't have that much of knowledge. So I was very new, and I went to that podium. I presented that work, and it was people gave me ovation that they liked what I presented. One of the important things from that presentation was not just my preparation or the presentation that I did. I appreciated those great scientists. Why? Because when you're sitting down in a hall, there is a passageway, right? Usually, so they have put up some mics there so that those people can ask questions. So all these great scientists, like old people, they were standing in a line to ask me questions about my presentation and data. And they were so nice. They said, okay, you had a nice presentation, very nice presentation. We love your work. Now tell me this. So they were not testing my knowledge from, what I had in B Farm or whatever, but they were asking me something which is new that they are learning from my presentation or from my data. So that was a fantastic experience that I had. Then it gave me enormous confidence that I could go any places, I can talk to people, I could present my work, and it was a very, very interesting experience that I had.
Really fantastic, sir. Next question. As a scientific writer and editor, what common mistakes do you see in early researchers make, and how can they avoid them? And could you share some tips on effective scientific writing?
Sure, Miss. I would just say, not just early, people, or not just new people. Everybody makes mistakes. First and foremost, mistakes that they do is in grammar and spelling. So it's nowadays you have spell check and grammar, it's there. But most of the people, they make huge amount of mistakes when they're writing something. The other thing which very important mistake that people do is using passive tense rather than active tense. Like suppose the program has been organized by me, is a passive tense. I organize the seminar is an active tense, so it's a direct language, right? Because we've been told to do the English in a different way. But what happens? You're using or consuming a lot of English words, right? You don't want too many interjections which are happening in a sentence. You have to have a direct tense at what you're doing. So when you write any paper, any grant, you have to address or you have to have English the way that it should be. You cannot be using too many words. That's why there is a word limit. And you have to put in important words in those word limits. So a lot of people actually make those mistakes by framing sentences. So they have to, nowadays, you have a lot of softwares. They could change your wording. But for you to develop as a writer, I must say that, you have to go through that and you have to read a lot of papers, how a paper has been written. You have to look at the facets of the paper, how the flow of the paper is, because it's telling a story. Either you are a scientific writer or a content writer, you are telling a story. So when you are telling a story, you have to have a flow. If I'm writing, if I'm reading a paper, if I'm reading a novel, there is a flow to it. If there is a break in the flow, nobody is interested in reading what you have done. And that is the biggest mistake that a lot of people do, that there is no flow in writing. There are bits and pieces stitched together, which is not good. Because if you have important data that you are presenting, and if you are not writing it properly, nobody will be interested in getting your paper in a higher impact factor journal. Because those people who have experience like me will be looking at how the flow of the story is. Not just story means, are you telling your point, or are you getting your point across to the community, scientific community? Because the journals are peer reviewed journals. So your peers are reviewing your work. So you have to convince those peers. And the higher impact factor journals you go, there'll be a lot of criticism which will be happening in your writing. So first things first, you have to read a lot of papers. Literature reading is a must. Then you have to practice writing, because nothing comes easy. You have to practice everything. Just like driving, just like swimming, you have to practice reading as well. You have to practice writing as well. And then you criticize your own thing. You criticize your own writing. Then you will see that what are the mistakes I'm getting. Or maybe you can give it to your colleagues. You can give it to your friends and see if your writing is good. That person might be able to, give you some more insights. This is how it happens. Those are your peers. Peer reviewed means what? Your friends are the peers. So if you can come through that, it will be easy for you. So some mistakes that everybody does. I am not pointing any fingers to newcomers or new people. It's not like that. All are humans. We all make mistakes. But those people who make less mistakes will be successful in their life. So same thing with writing and doing all other things in terms of scientific literature.
Yes, these grammar mistakes are really they are minor but really important, because one of my senior was means she submitted the paper and it was reverted back, and the comments were of only and don't use the symbol of and, use the word and. Then other whole comments were of only grammar mistakes, and nothing else was the reason for commenting the paper for reverting.
Yeah, see, the thing is, as I said, in English is not our innate language, so we don't know certain things, that's for sure. But then you learn from your mistakes. Similarly, I'll give you an example that when I was new, I was writing applications to United States. I wrote one of the applications in capital letters, everything. That person came back to me saying that you are rude, because writing everything in capital letters is suggested to be rude. So I did not know that. So you learn from those things. You make mistakes, but you learn from those mistakes.
Thank you, sir, for these tips. Then, as a member of various professional organizations such as the American Association of Cancer Research and the Society for Neuroscience, how do you see these affiliations are benefiting your professional growth and network?
See, these affiliations of these well-renowned, organizations is very, very critical, I think, for your growth. I'm not just saying that, that they will be helping you in doing something, but it's a platform. Just like you have a platform right now, there are a lot of people coming in and giving their, suggestions, or, some sharing their experiences like me. So suppose if you take an example of SFN, Society for Neuroscience, that society, if you're a member of it, they will send you some emails saying that what is new happening in the world. Okay, if if I'm having a topic of interest, I can put in that topic of interest and they'll give you emails and updates and what is happening, what is new happening in the world. What are the new, or which are the new conferences which will be happening in around the world? Do you want to join those conferences? Again, not just conferences, you will be able to collaborate with a lot of people, because this is a big society. If you look at Society for Neuroscience or American Diabetes Association, they're huge people who are members. So you will be able to actually collaborate with those members. And if somebody is doing real research, it will be easier for those people to collaborate and then meet up during their conferences, which they will be holding once a year. So you will be actually be able to get access to other people, to see what other people are doing. And then, as I said, there is a platform like LinkedIn, right? You can communicate with them as professionally. So it will build up your profession, as well as you will build up your collaboration, and you will get to see what is happening in their labs, what are they doing. Also, one of the key aspects of these memberships is like you will be able to find jobs on their portal. So suppose, as I said, SFN, Society for Neuroscience, you will be able to find jobs in the field of neuroscience on their website around the world, not just United States, but around the world. Maybe you'll be able to find something in India as well that you don't know that it's a company from United States is funding, and it's like international job. But people don't go and search for those things because we have certain engines, right? Search engines. That's where you find a job. But these societies are actually good in that way that you will be able to find these things as well. So overall, I'm not saying that it's very direct, but certain key aspects that you could get and grow as a researcher or as a professional by getting these membership of these specific organizations.
Thank you, sir, for sharing. It has many beneficial points. You have mentored and guided students at various levels, from undergraduates to doctoral candidates. What has been the most rewarding aspect of this experience for you?
Okay, I think apart from I'm having different students, it's not just that they are succeeding in their careers. That's of course means I'm happy for that, but I feel that overall development. I look at a person in terms of how you are developing as a human being. That is the prime goal that I have as a mentor, as a guide. Means as I said, you might be hearing from me a lot of these tips with respect to the human life. I always consider that is of prime importance. Other careers and all other things are part of your life. If you live your life accordingly, other things will come to you. Okay, so you have to consider as a human life. And so the one of the rewarding thing which I feel is like if few of my students are going forward and carrying those values that I have shared with them, that's quite rewarding to me. And again, as I said, like we all have minds and souls and body. That is our strength that we have. Those are the things which are been given to us by nature. And I when I taught the classes, I always say like respect yourself, or you respect your body, respect each and every cell that you have in a body, because when all the cells are working effectively, you are you're alive. You're doing all the processes. Your pathophysiological conditions are good. You're not getting any diseases. So every cell, every cellular mechanism is very important. And if all these things which I have taught to my students, if they can carry forward those things, we will be I'll be very happy with that.
Yes, sir, you possess lot of human development assets. I will say you are a really great philosopher. You should write a book and it will be a bestseller, sir.
Thank you. So kind of you.
Sir, next question. With numerous awards and recognitions, which accomplishment are you most proud of and why?
So coming back to the point that I was making, that I always consider these awards or these adjectives or prepositions are to be outside your human life. Always, because if I got doctorate, that's fine. Means, but I'm a human first. I got a birth as a human, right? So main thing I focus on is human life. Again, coming back to the point, if I've got a great mind and soul, my thinking will be good. And that is an award in itself, that you're becoming or you're behaving as a human. You're being a human and you're kind enough to other people. That's a great award in itself. Like nature has given you this greatest award, but we're looking for awards elsewhere. Like, I have done this, I need an award, I need a trophy. You don't need a trophy. You are a trophy. You are the award. So I think that is the only thing I should consider, that this is what I have and I should maintain what I have, and maybe other people should benefit from that.
Yes, sir. Humanity wins over all things.
Right.
Coming to our next segment, that is innovative research projects from idea to implementation. So you have published over 30 plus research papers in international journals. For our listeners who are early researchers, could you share some tips on how to effectively write and publish research papers in peer-reviewed journals?
Yeah, I mean, so I think I've explained a little bit about that, how to write a paper. And as I said, effectively write means your writing has to be good. You have to, get your point across to the audience. Right? If I'm speaking right now, if I cannot get my point across, then I'm not a good orator, I'm not a good speaker, or I'm not a good communicator. Same thing with a writer. If you're a writer, if you're an editor, it's very important that you get your point across. And to get a point across, you need a good writing skill. You need a good oration skill. That means that your English needs to improve. I'm not saying that your English needs to be fantastic as Europeans or Americans have, but at least you should try. Once you start practicing, then you will get good at it. Same thing with communicating. Same thing with writing and any other aspect of your life, what you're doing. If you repeatedly do that, you will get better. So, in terms of writing good papers, again, as I said, you need to have enough knowledge of the subject matter, enough knowledge in terms of background, what is available there, what is the background which has been published before by other scientists, what is happening in that field, and what are you intending to say about that topic. What do you have to say about certain pathophysiological condition? If you're writing a review paper, as you know that reviews are written on the basis of other people's work. So when you're writing a scientific review paper, you have to look at a greater picture of what different scientists have done in that field. You have to go through different papers, not a limited amount of papers. You have to go to a lot of papers and read those papers. I am not saying that you should read each and every paper, but at least start reading abstracts. If you feel that abstract is interesting to you, then you go ahead and in detail read the paper. Again, not just that paper, you have to look at the references which are listed there because you will get a lot of information from those references. So reading number of papers will build up that confidence that, okay, now I know about that subject matter. Then you think about what new you are projecting from your paper. What is the point that you want to get across to people from this new thing that you want to project? Because there is a lot of literature already available. So you need to think about what is my hypothesis. Suppose you are doing experiment. What is my hypothesis? And to boost that hypothesis or to support that hypothesis, what are the points which are needed? If you do this thing on a piece of paper, that these are the stepwise points I need to mention so that my paper will be better in terms of content, in terms of writing, and in terms of overall structure of the paper, as well as when I send this paper to the peers of mine, they will be happy with the paper. They will be happy to read that paper. I'm not just publishing a paper for the sake of publishing, which is happening nowadays. So that's not the way to write a paper. But unfortunately, this is the case is like that. But let's not go into that. Think about positive things which you could do, because this will develop you in that field. This will give you a creative kind of aspect to your brain, because a lot of times brain is habituated. You have the habit of writing certain things, right? So that is habituated to that you have that, okay, you're writing certain things. But if you develop a new aspect, how to write a certain paper, it will go far. You will be able to write a lot of review papers as well as research papers, because both the things are in a way a blend. In review papers, you are actually looking at other people's work and summarizing the results and then making your point from review papers. But in research paper, what you're doing, you are actually conducting your experiments and then getting the results and statistically proving that your results are prominent enough so that I'm getting this inference. So you're projecting your research work in your writing so that the people will agree to your hypothesis.
Yeah, reading will help you and it will win the game. Just read and you will win the game.
That's right.
Next is, can you share the story behind one of your most innovative research projects? How did the idea originate and what steps did you take to bring it to fruition?
So I think I've been part of numerous, scientific projects. So I cannot think of one many, but maybe one of that, as I said, like when I was a part of regenerative medicine team in a project, we wanted to develop neuronal cells. As I said, like I was mentioning that before, but those neuronal cells need to be functional. Cells, when they want to be functional, there are certain prerequisites to those. I'm sure that maybe your audience will know what is in vitro and in vivo.
Yes.
In vivo means inside the body, and in vitro means outside the body. So yeah, so projecting my research work was to have cells which will develop into neurons. So there were stem cells. Those were neural progenitor stem cells. So they were progenitors. They were not neural cells. But to develop them into neurons, you have to feed certain growth factors to them so that they will become neuronal stem cells. So that was one of the innovative research that I was doing, that, okay, I have a stem cell culture. How I can develop these into fully functional neuronal cells? Because unless until you have fully functional neurons,
neural progenitor cells, and I had to feed those cells certain amount of growth factors so that they will develop into fully functional neurons. So that if I have a neuronal cell culture, I will be able to measure the electrical activity between two neurons, because there is a crosstalk between neurons, as you know. There will be axons, they will be connecting to other axons, and you'll get a connection. You'll get a synapse of neurons. So, but it has to be functional, because I could see the structure under a microscope, but it has to produce an electrical activity. So I had to do electrophysiological studies, which is called patch clamping. When you patch clamp two neurons, you will be able to see if there is a electrical impulse which is happening. There will be sodium potassium channels playing a part in there. So all these things, when we were developing a neuronal culture, we wanted to put these cells in vivo. Later on, we actually did that. Because I had experience of a lot of microsurgeries, so we actually implanted those neurons inside the brain and tried to develop new neuronal cells inside the brain so that they will have connection to the lower part of the brain. So that was one of the fascinating project that I was part of, where right from developing neurons from stem cell culture to implanting those cells in vivo surgically into a live rat and seeing if those neuronal cells are functioning. That is one of the things which we did, and I think we are processing a patent with respect to that pretty soon. But that's one of the projects that I was part of.
That sounds really fascinating and wonderful, sir.
Yeah.
Science often involves a lot of trial and error. Can you share a time when an unexpected result or failure led to significant breakthrough in your research?
I couldn't think of a significant breakthrough, but I agree with what you're saying. Science is always trial and error. So a lot of the times when you do research in pharmacology, because I've come from pharmacology, you have to titrate a lot of doses, right? And you titrate different doses. Similar with physicians, like when somebody is having a blood pressure, and when you're trying to change medicine, they also titrate. They will give you a dosing. They'll see if the tablet, if it's working well for you. So similarly, I wouldn't say that I had a greater kind of experiences with an error, but trial and error. One thing I can tell you, one of the experience that I had is when I was a part of my PhD, experimental work, we used to do a lot of experiments on the brain, and a lot of experiments we used to do a lot of microsurgeries. One of those surgeries was implanting a cannula inside the brain. If the audience doesn't know what is cannula, cannula is a small tube which will go inside the brain of a rat by drilling a skull. There will be small hole will be drilled into a skull, and a cannula will be placed into the brain of animal or rat, in my case. And what will happen, that cannula will be placed for injecting a small amount of drug and see its effect on the brain. So one of the things which I started when I started doing microsurgeries, the first part of my surgery was to implant that small tube or cannula inside the specific part of the brain. And if you know that, usually when you look at implanting something into the brain, you have a brain atlas, rat brain atlas, mouse brain atlas. You will need to refer to that because there are certain coordinates, right? Because in Pune, if I'm in Pune right now, there are coordinates, right? Longitude and latitude defines where I'm located right now. Same thing on the brain part. If you are putting something inside the brain, there are coordinates, rostral and caudal. Those are the different coordinates that you focus on so that you can go sideways, inside, and so because if you are piercing your brain, you need to know where you are putting your tube. You need to know which area you are focusing on. So that was one of the things where I had to implant a cannula into a ventricle. Ventricle is a part of the brain where cerebrospinal fluid will be found in larger quantities. So once you put your cannula into the ventricle, that CSF flows throughout the brain. So I did the surgery that time. But how do I know that I have ended up in a precision at that stage? Or how do I know that I have hit that area? Because I want to put my cannula into the ventricle. So there is an interesting experiment which people do that will give you a confirmatory that you have hit that area. There is a drug which everybody knows, angiotensin 2. So what happens when you have a cannula in the brain, you inject 1 microliter of angiotensin 2 into the rat brain. So if the cannula is at right place, that angiotensin 2 will go into the cerebrospinal fluid. And because of angiotensin, it will bind to the receptors in the brain and it will create a hypovolemic condition. Hypovolemic condition means the brain will feel that there is lack of water in your body. You're fooling the brain, but you are putting that into your CSF. So your brain will believe that there is a hypovolemic condition in your body or in the rat, and the rat will stop doing everything else but start finding water immediately. And the rat, after putting the angiotensin, will start drinking water for next 15 minutes. Okay, and that rat will drink water for 15 minutes. That means you have hit the right position in the brain. That is the confirmatory. So as you said, it's a trial and error thing. So many times when you start out, you will not hit that area because you don't know what are the exact coordinates. And even if you know the coordinates, you will not drill at the proper place. You will not put up the proper cannula, and that will be a trial and error. So you will lose that animal because anyways, you have not reached the exact location. So that's a trial and error. I did a lot. So, but that was one of the fascinating experiment that is there to see.
That's really interesting, sir. Next question, sir. You have worked on wide range of topics from prostate cancer and stem cell research to neuroendocrinology. What drives your interest in these diverse fields, and how do you manage to stay updated and contribute significantly to each?
First things first is like as I said, I was fortunate enough to go to a lab where neuroscience was the prime field. So I was interested in neuroscience because I had a PhD in there. So basically, my major field which I studied in was neuroscience. Anyways, there are a lot of aspects which are related to brain. I am looking into that all the time. I read a lot of papers. If there is something new which is happening, as I said, you have to read those things because a lot of people are doing groundbreaking breaking work. You have to be updated with that work. And if you don't read new things, you will not know what is happening around you. And as a scientist or as a researcher, it's a crime that you don't know what's happening around you in science. Because if you talk about CRISPR technology, which is happening now, if you don't know about that, then it's a crime because everything is happening. Genetics, it's coming up. So to answer your questions, I keep myself updated with all these. Everybody does that. Everybody opens a newspaper every morning, right? And reads what's happening in our society. Same thing. This is a society. This is a research society. You have to read those stuff which is happening in your society so that you can make our society beautiful and better with the help of research expertise that you have, with the help of expert knowledge that you have. So more, I think nothing more to that. Only thing is just read new things which are happening and see if you can contribute. If somebody comes to me with a collaboration, if I could do some research, I will be definitely interested in doing something with my discretions and whatever I have, whatever resources I have. So keep up with the knowledge which is presented out there because a lot of people are doing hard work and you have to appreciate their work by just opening up the page or a website and reading it. That's it.
Yes, staying updated will open up the door to a lot of opportunities.
Correct.
Uh, Sir, how do you envision your contributions to the field in the next 5 years?
So I always look to do some good things in a way that because I have that experience, I feel that I should be doing good things for the society in my in my power. So next 5 years, I will be looking at writing more grants. If I could get the money, I will be able to get some research work done, and along the way, I will be able to teach a lot of students. In that sense, they'll be able to learn a lot of different things. If I could kind of inculcate those values into them, again, my research expertise will be transferable in a way because I've done a lot of work in genetics. So if I could set up some kind of genetic experimental work along with collaborations with other people, it will be great. For next 5 years, I'll be looking at that. And again, not just that, I would like to contribute to the society as a whole because I don't want to regret later on that I had a chance but I couldn't do it. So I always feel that if I get a chance, I will make it count. And along the way, I'm sure that a lot of people will be benefited through this.
That's wonderful, Vijay, sir. Moving on to the next segment, that is engagement in science, collaboration and community. Collaboration is key in research. How can early researchers and students build a strong professional network in their field?
I think one of the key things which has happened over a decade or more than that is, social networking, which is a wonderful thing which has happened because when I started out, I never had a mobile or all these things to reach out to great people. But now the platforms like LinkedIn, you can reach out to people. You can know, or you can go to PubMed Center and see what are the papers that they have written, what is the work they're doing, and you can reach out to those people through LinkedIn, and they respond. If you are really keen, if you are really interested, those people are good enough, or they are kind enough to respond to you. And I'm sure that a lot of your audiences will be on LinkedIn, and they'll be looking at people who are doing different work. I'm not just saying about research, but other profession as well. You know that a lot of people are on LinkedIn. Mostly everybody is on LinkedIn nowadays because this is a professional network. And if somebody wants to find a job or even somebody wants to collaborate, you can directly contact them. It's very easy nowadays to go across the globe, communicate to other people, which was not there before. Now I think the world has come closer. It's very global nowadays. So I'm sure that you should utilize these platforms for the best of your ability, for the best of your approaches towards these people. And I'm sure that if somebody like me or people are there, I'm sure they'll be able to help you out, and they will entertain you, because sometimes there is a fear that if somebody at a big stature or at a big position, how can I contact that person? But if you write in a right way, if you are like kind enough, something like you have to be polite enough. I would say you have to polite enough to write to some people that this is what I need, and would you be able to help me out? I'm sure that there is humanity everywhere, and people will be able to help you out. So social networking nowadays is the, I would say, mantra of reaching out to people, and be ahead in that sense. I think connections, collaborations are the key to success nowadays. Everywhere where you go, you need references, right? So if you need references, that means you need to know good renowned people, so that their word will be taken as it is, because you cannot just have references from anybody anywhere. I'm not just talking about India, outside as well. You need people to write you a good reference letter, so that you'll be projected as a good person. Because anybody, if you're somebody is employing you, or somebody is hiring you, or somebody is taking you as a student outside as well, they would like to know your background. And if you have people connected or collaborated, you can actually ask them that can you write something good about me, so that I would be able to easily go through this situation. I could end up in a good position. So people are kind enough to do that. So social networking is the key.
Thank you for this suggestion, sir. It was a great suggestion. Now, as we wrap up our conversation, what three pieces of advice would you give to someone who wants to make a difference in healthcare and research, just like you have?
I would say it's not just healthcare or any. I think any you know uh, any part of your life, or any instance that I believe that when you are doing some work, first thing is you have to respect your profession. That is a key. Any profession. If you are a pharmacy professional, I would say those people who are in pharmacy should respect what you're doing. If suppose, for example, Mayuri is doing M-Pharm, she should respect that I am doing M-Pharm. If you don't respect your profession, nobody will respect you. That's what I found out. If you respect your profession, I think everybody will respect you, because you have those qualities. That's why you're doing this. If you respect your qualities, then you start believing yourself, right? So first and foremost is start respecting your profession. The other thing which I believe is very important, second thing, is perseverance. You should do these things consistently. Whatever you do, you have to have perseverance, is that, because failing always comes. There's a part of your life. You will fail all the time, and there is no shame in failing. But you have to get up from that and do the thing again and again. Because they always say that you try hard all the time. When you fail down, you try harder, and it works. Although you might not get 100% success, at least you will get to a point where you'll be satisfied. So perseverance in whatever you do, in healthcare or wherever, it's very important. The third, I would say, the third and the last is patience, because it's very important to be patient. Suppose if I'm doing an experiment and my experiment is failing, so I will persevere. I will keep on doing that. Then I look at what are the mistakes that I'm making. But I should have the patience to wait till I get good results. Because nowadays, you can tell me, means this is probably the generation that we have reels on your mobile. How much time do you spend on one reel? If the reel is 30 seconds, you might not be spending 5 seconds or 10 seconds if you don't like it. So that is the patience that we have nowadays. And because of all these things, it has gone down. The patience has gone down. Nobody is patient enough to give other people a chance to communicate. You need to be patient. Like driving through Pune roads or driving through India, you need to be patient. You cannot be bad mouthing. So any field, or any, even like healthcare, patience is very important. So 3 points that I told you. One is respect your profession. You persevere in what you're doing. and have patience. I think you will succeed in your life. All right.
Thank you, sir. Respect, patience, and perseverance will definitely help us. And thank you sharing for the practical advice or suggestions. Now we will come up to the Q&A session. So audience, be ready with your questions. You can drop the questions in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask the questions to the guest. We already have one question, that is, sir, I am doing my PharmD. Who can I get into the research? How can I get into the research? Should I do masters in clinical research or any other thing that help me to enter in research? Question from Zayed.
Okay. Thanks, Zayed, for the question. I'm sure that what you're saying is, if I'm getting it right, you're doing a PharmD and you want to go into the research field. Is it clinical research field? That's what he was saying, right? So I'm sure that if you're interested in doing research, you have to complete your PharmD, that's for sure. But you can apply for masters. I don't know if you're interested in going to any other countries other than India, but you can do masters. Absolutely. And when you are focusing on research, because PharmD is you know how the program works, because I've taught PharmD in the United States. PharmD is a far more clinic related subject, right? So you have to look at what are the fields where you will be able to explore certain things. Suppose you're going into the hospital and looking at certain things through a clinician's eye. You have to look at certain aspects where you can put in your knowledge and do some research in that aspect, because there is a lot of I think opportunities in clinical research, because a lot of pharmacovigilance fields are opening up for clinical research. ADR reporting, you know that, you might have learned a little bit about that. So if you want to do research or community-based research, I would suggest you that you have to be a part of the core hospital-based system. That's where you would be able to do some kind of research in terms of clinical findings, and getting a lot of insights from the doctors, or whoever is involved in clinical trials. I think that is the field for you, which will be best suited to your PharmD background. You can do masters. I'm not saying that you should not do it, but after doing your PharmD, if you want to go to research, I would believe that you can be a part of core pharmacovigilance team, or you could be a part of core clinical trial field where there are a lot of research which is happening.
I guess Zayed, this has helped you. So audience, do you have more questions? Please drop your questions in the chat box. Next question. How should we find the day-to-day update in research, sir? Question from Tatha Usha.
Okay, Tata, thank you very much for the question. Day-to-day update is very easy to find. There are a lot of websites. Suppose there is one of the website is PubMed Central. You can go to that, and they have recent papers that are published every time. You can go to Google Scholar as well. There are a lot of other resources where you can go and find different research papers which are giving you insights into what is happening in the field of research. Not just one field, there are multiple fields, not just basic research, but you would be able to find clinical research and related fields as well. So it's not just somebody's working in a lab. You'll find a research from there. You'll be finding research from clinics. You'll be finding research from hospital. So different kinds of research will be found on PubMed Central, one of the sites. Google Scholar is one of the sites. And even if you just look at the news, a lot of news actually project a lot of new research. Suppose when pandemic happened, there was a new development of a vaccine. Usually the vaccine takes like years to develop, within 7 to 10 years, but this time the vaccine happened pretty fast. So the new development was put up on the website, even WHO website. You will get a lot of information on that. So a lot of these websites will be able to tell you what is happening around the world in the field of research.
guys, are there more questions or should we wrap up the session? Okay, let's wrap up the session. Thank you, sir. I would like to extend a heartfelt thank you for joining us today on Research Cafe. Your journey, dedication, and insights are not only inspiring but also truly enriching. It's been a pleasure to hear your experiences and incredible work you are doing. And to our amazing listeners, a huge thanks you for tuning in and being part of this enlightening conversation. We hope you found Dr. Kai's journey as inspiring as we did. Until next time, keep exploring and stay curious. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you very much to the audience. You've been kind enough to listen to my thoughts. I hope that they have helped a little bit in terms of what my suggestions were or maybe my experiences were. I'm sure you will do well in your endeavors wherever you are, and all the very best to all the very best to your team and all the people who have arranged this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for removing the valuable time. And you can already see in the chat box, the feedback is inspiring.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So, guys, fill up the feedback form. We will close in the 5 minutes.